In our other top story this hour, the spat between President Cyril Ramaphosa and Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu is intensifying. The presidency issued a statement last night that the minister had apologized for her controversial opinion piece. It said she conceded her choice of words were inappropriate. The statement also said Sisulu regrets the damage it has caused to the judiciary. Sisulu then responded, saying it was a misrepresentation of what was said in her meeting with Ramaphosa. She says she was not retracting her comments and distanced herself from the statement. Well, late last night, the presidency issued another statement restating its original stance, and now, just in, the minister, Sisulu, has issued another statement. We're talking about statement number 4 now, saying she wishes to clarify that a deliberate misrepresentation has been made by the president's media team, and at no stage was she ever admonished. So it really is turning into a football here, and one has to wonder when it's ever going to end. Meanwhile, political commentator Thabo Shole Masho believes if Minister Lindiwe Sisulu says sorry, she would lose support in both factions of the ANC.
Between these two statements, one of them is definitely not telling the truth. And in time, we will know who is not. But in this particular time, at this particular time, Heidi, it is truly unfortunate to see the cabinet divided as it would be, because clearly there would be those who are supporting Minister Sisulu, there would be those who are supporting the president, even if they may remain silent. However, to answer your question directly, she has put her colors on the mast as far as the ANC's conference is concerned. She has said that this, not in so many words, but in action, clearly says that she's not going with the president. But again, 10 months, 11 months is way too much time in politics. It seems like years. Anything can change in the next few months, in the next few weeks. But as we stand right now, Minister Sisulu is saying, I'm not going with you, President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Well, let's take a deep dive into the Sisulu-Ramaphosa saga. Sanusha Naidoo is a political analyst whose phone must have been pinging last night like mine was, Sanusha. Each message more extraordinary than the rest. And I don't know if you've managed to catch up because you've been holding on the line with us, but Minister Sisulu has just sent another statement saying she wants to clarify the outcome of her meeting with President Ramaphosa, saying that there's been a deliberate misrepresentation by the president's media team regarding her meeting. At no stage was she admonished. It was a sensible meeting on good terms, and she's effectively accused her boss, the president, and his media team now of misrepresenting the truth, aka lying.
Good morning, Annika. Unlike everyone else, I put my phone off last night because I wanted to sleep. And the thing is, this has now become much more than just whether or not this is an attack on the judiciary or about transformation or however else it has been projected and framed in terms of its architecture and what the implications are. It's now fully blown out there between the minister and, as you say, her executive boss, which is the president, to say that we are taking each other on. And I'm actually quite disappointed that we are ventilating an issue which is really around the internal party lines, around succession, debates, etc., when we have real questions to be answering in our governance architecture and the institutional challenges that we face in South Africa. We've got the matric results released. We know that there's going to be a majority of students who are going to be struggling to get place at university. There's going to be a greater pressure on the state and the resources of the state in order to absorb these new entrants into the job market. And yet we see this kind of circus happening between the president and his minister. And it's not just about whether this is between a minister and her executive manager or the executive that oversees her. It's actually about the party. And as the previous analyst said in the insert, it's coming out in terms of how they're pushing this agenda quite early on in an elective year. We knew this year was going to be significant, but we're also seeing now that the gauntlet has been thrown down. The problem with this whole thing is that it deflects. It deflects from what we really should be talking about. Is this what South Africa is about? Is this what this year is about? We are sitting in a dire set of constraints. We're not sure what our inflation is high. We're not sure how that's going to impact on people's lives and livelihoods. We know that the pandemic has had a serious impact on the way in which our economic and political architecture has been structured. But at the end of the day, it seems, again, all that we saw before the Zondo Commission, all that we heard before the Zondo Commission around the relationship between state and party and state is just being played out now. So I think it becomes frustrating for someone like me to be commenting on something where it's never going to be a never-ending story. It's a revolving door. If today it's Minister Sisulu, and of course there's been the issuing of the statement by her, I waste a lot of energy and a lot of issues around who said what and whether this was the right thing and whether she's been admonished, etc. It's going to be somebody else tomorrow. And we're going to see this happening until we get to that point of the elective conference.
Sanusha, why I think it's important is because it shows in the history of the ANC, until quite recently, we didn't see the open fractures within the party and the open divisions. It was very much kept under wraps. Now it's all-out warfare, and this affects the discipline of not only the party, but of how cabinet is run. And it means that the president cannot hold his ministers accountable if they are openly defiant. And that, of course, affects us as citizens of this country, because it means that the country is not being effectively run.
Well, that's precisely my point. My point is that we're ventilating it because of precisely the fact that it affects the governance. But at the end of the day as well, is that as long as we're talking about the governance architecture and the impact this has on citizens in terms of the institutional voids and so forth, if there's accountability, where does it lie? Does he censure her because she's a senior member of cabinet and made statements against the Constitution? That's the one angle to look at. Does he censor her as president of the republic or as president of the party? He has to find those two dynamics to come through. But while all of this is happening, the real issues in South Africa are not being addressed. And I think the challenge for us right now is that we're going to constantly talk about that, but what is the end result? What is the consequence management, to use the president's term, of running this republic in the context of the way business runs consequent management programs? He talked about a performance appraisal document. He speaks a lot about these contracts being signed around KPAs and KPIs. But at the end of the day, will this affect the minister? Will she be seen as somebody that needs to be censured? And will he then heed the call of some quarters in society who are saying that she should be asked to vacate her position? And I think at the end of the day, it becomes just one small point. What it becomes then is we're caught in this quagmire because precisely we're not sure what's going to happen. So we keep going around in terms of the impact on society, but what is the end result?
Sanusha, what does the president do now with an openly defiant and even a minister who's actually showing contempt? Does he fire her? Does he discipline her? What can he do?
Well, that's precisely another challenge for the president and a dilemma that he has to face. Because at the end of the day, whatever action he takes, he has to also be cognizant of what would be the implications for him in the party. Will this galvanize the critics? Will it galvanize those opponents in the party that will use this as the basis to say, Mr. President, under your watch, we've just had a serious set of crisis upon crisis. The party is much more fragmented than it was previously. There's no cohesiveness. So I think he's also in a dilemma because depending on what he came out, what the presidency came out with in terms of the statement, I mean, the fact that in less than 24 hours, you've had 4 statements all coming out disputing each other tells you that there is a serious dilemma both for the president and whether or not he's able to challenge that as the president of the republic, the president of the party. I think for him, if he does actually take his confidence further and feel that he does have the ability to leverage his presidency in the party, that he does have the dynamics and the dimensions of support in the party, and he decides to censure her, but also censure her in the context of maybe, I don't know, is a reshuffle coming on the cards where he'll move her again? That's another possibility. He has to worry about what the backlash will be in the party. So I really think that it's a crisis within a crisis that just became a completely untenable situation for everybody.
Thank you so much. That was analyst and commentator Sanusha Naidoo. Taps, I don't know about you, but I think that the president has to show a firm hand here in order to show that he's in control. And as we say in Mzansi, is a mess.